Today, let's take a break from our usual murder cases to address a more urgent issue. Protests have erupted across Bangladesh, and unfortunately, these protests have turned violent, with clashes between protesters and police. Today, we will focus on Bangladesh's anti-quota protest, which urgently needs world attention. Recently, massive demonstrations throughout Bangladesh have escalated into deadly altercations between students and police. Peaceful demonstrations against the reinstated quota system have turned into a battleground, where students are facing extreme measures from the government. It is a total bloodbath in Bangladesh right now. As of July 25th, nearly 200 deaths were reported in just over a week of violence. The overall death toll from the violence may be higher, as local media is having difficulty reaching many hospitals where dozens of critically injured patients were taken. Additionally, many families reportedly collected the bodies of their loved ones from the scene. While the government has pledged that student protesters wouldn't face legal action or harassment, media reports said that nearly 3,000 people had been arrested in recent days across the country. Riot police have used tear gas and rubber bullets against protesters. These students weren't armed insurgents or criminals. They were young people demanding a fair and just system that does not discriminate against them. Human rights organizations have accused the government of using illegal force against the protesters. So, what is happening in Bangladesh? It all started with the term quota system. So what is it exactly? The quota system in the Bangladesh civil service reserves a certain number of jobs for specific groups, including disabled individuals, underrepresented districts, and most notably, the descendants of freedom fighters from the Bangladesh Liberation War. This system aims to provide opportunities for disadvantaged populations and the offspring of former freedom fighters. So essentially, if your parents or grandparents fought for the country, you have greater access to government jobs. Approximately 30% of the highly desirable positions are reportedly reserved for the kin of veterans who participated in Bangladesh's independence struggle against Pakistan. These reserved roles come with higher compensation and job security. So how does someone get a job through this system? Every applicant must pass the preliminary exams, and during the final oral interview phase, the quota is considered. Government jobs are highly sought after in Bangladesh because of their better benefits and salaries compared to private sector jobs. However, Bangladeshi students have often protested against this quota system, arguing that it prevents qualified applicants from being hired. In 2008, former civil servant Akbar Ali Khan criticized the quota system, calling it flawed and discriminatory, compromising merit and competency. This view was supported by many, including Bangladesh Public Service Commission Chairman Dr. Sadat Hossain. But unfortunately, the Bangladeshi government ignored comprehensive proposals to revamp the recruitment quota system. On March 21, 2018, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina announced that the quota system for liberation warriors and their descendants would be preserved to honor their extraordinary sacrifices for the nation. This statement signaled her government's resistance to changing the current quota structure, which upset public administration professionals and proponents of quota reform. However, quotas or affirmative action programs risk being captured by special interests. When these quotas persist for an extended period, they can discourage people from striving for success and foster complacency among the very groups they are meant to assist. Preserving the district quota and the liberation fighters quota may hinder Bangladesh's ability to compete internationally in public service. Many believe that compassionate reservations are no longer necessary and question why talented candidates should be held back from securing good jobs. There are instead alternative ways to honor the descendants of freedom fighters. One suggestion is to consider a program similar to India's freedom fighters pension scheme, which provides honorariums and exempts descendants from examinations and admission fees for education. This approach would particularly benefit underprivileged children of liberation fighters, especially those in rural areas. After widespread student protests in 2018, the quota system was put on hold. The quota system reserved up to 56% of government jobs for these groups before the protests. And in a controversial ruling on June 5th, the Bangladeshi High Court mandated the reinstatement of the 30% reservation for the offspring and descendants of liberation fighters in all public sector positions, regardless of cadre status. And on July 1st, 2024, protests began at the prestigious Dhaka University. By July 15th, these demonstrations turned violent when members of the ruling Awami League Party's student branch allegedly attacked protesters on the university campus. During a demonstration, a projectile was thrown into the crowd, injuring student protester Hossein. The protests soon became daily occurrences, spreading to other schools and cities across the country. Conflicts between demonstrators, security personnel, and regime supporters have intensified. In response, Bangladesh deployed its paramilitary Rapid Action Battalion, which the US sanctioned in 2021 for widespread allegations of serious human rights abuses. Reports indicate that demonstrators were shot at and attacked with small explosive devices. Additionally, police ambushed them with tear gas in confined areas. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina referred to the demonstrators as Razakars, a term used historically to denote collaborators with Pakistani forces during the 1971 Liberation War, which angered many protesters. So basically, she was calling them traitors. On July 14th, she stated, "Why do people harbor such animosity for freedom fighters? Should the grandchildren of Razakars receive quota benefits if the grandchildren of freedom fighters do not?" This remark enraged and offended the demonstrators who sought justice and equality. The term Razakar became a catchphrase for the protests. Who are you? Who am I? We are Razakars. Who is branding us the dictator, the dictator. The Bangladesh Chahatra League warned that any demonstrator using these phrases would face legal action, viewing them as disrespectful to the spirit of the freedom fighters and the liberation war. They declared that future use of these slogans would be met with consequences. Even Deepu Moni, the Minister of Social Welfare, stated that the demonstrators shouldn't be allowed to fly the Bangladeshi flag. The nationwide protest, the biggest since Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was re-elected earlier this year, is fueled by high youth unemployment. Nearly a fifth of the country's 170 million population is out of work or education. High unemployment levels, especially among young people, are driving the anger. Demonstrators claim that the quota system is biased in favor of the Awami League Party, led by Prime Minister Hasina, which is seen as unfair and denies many people employment opportunities, contributing to national unemployment and poverty. Considering that these are highly sought-after jobs in Bangladesh, it's fair for students to disagree with such quota system that could take away their opportunities of employment. The protest has become something close to a war now. The Awami League Party's student branch is reportedly fighting against protesters with weapons and sticks. This escalated when the Awami League General Secretary declared that the Bangladesh Chahatra League was ready to respond to quota protesters for their arrogant behavior. Members of the Awami League Party's student branch attempted to storm the emergency room of Dhaka Medical College Hospital around 5:30 p.m., where more than 200 injured students were receiving care. Around 7:30 p.m., individuals wearing helmets forced their way onto the premises and launched an attack. Many were armed with Chinese axes and rods. They destroyed multiple ambulances parked on the premises and attacked students who had previously been injured during the quota reform agitation. This violence spread to other universities as well. The coordinator of the anti-discrimination student movement in Comilla was reportedly beaten by 8 members of the Awami League Party's student branch. A serious attack also occurred at Jahangirnagar University. Chhatra League members, armed and dangerous, targeted students there. Hundreds of Chhatra League members, wielding sticks, pipes, bricks, and glass bottles, assaulted the students. Reports indicate that shots were fired, resulting in injuries to around 50 student demonstrators and 2 journalists. Abu Sayed, a student of Begum Rokeya University, was the first to be killed in the anti-quota protest. On July 16th, between 2:30 and 3 p.m., quota reform protesters clashed with police in front of Begum Rokeya University. Police used tear gas and baton charges to disperse the students. While most students fled, Abu Sayed remained, attempting to resist rubber bullets with a stick. And at one point, he spread his chest to the police and was shot, subsequently collapsing. Anjan Roy, a friend of Abu Sayed, reported that Abu was bleeding from his nose, and the ongoing clash delayed his transfer to the hospital, where he died before admission. Medical staff from the Rangpur Medical College Hospital confirmed multiple rubber bullet wounds on Abu's body, and that he died before reaching the surgery ward. He came from a humble background and tutored school students to help support his family. After his death, the police forcibly took his body for an autopsy, denying his family the chance to see him. In his final Facebook post, Abu Sayed expressed his despair, urging for courage and righteousness in the fight against tyranny and unemployment. In retaliation, student demonstrators at university destroyed halls associated with the Chhatra League, specifically targeting the room of the president of the RU Chhatra League and other members connected to the group. Protesters at Dhaka University expelled Chhatra League members from 11 halls and declared the group banned. Students drove out Chhatra League members from other colleges around the nation, leading to numerous universities to declare themselves Chhatra League free. To calm the commotion, authorities attempted to shut down internet and mobile connections, resulting in a total national internet blackout in Bangladesh. The police accused demonstrators of setting fire to and damaging government and police buildings, but this did not stop the protest or the global conversation about these critical issues. A group called Resistance reportedly hacked several official websites in Bangladesh, including the Prime Minister's office, the police, and the central bank. The message on Hasina's office website read, "Stop killing students," in large, blood-red characters. It continued, "It's not a protest anymore. Now it's a war." The details of these hacks remain unclear. Student protesters expressed that their actions have gone beyond frustration with the quota system. They are now furious with Hasina and her administration, viewing them as a one-sided group. They claimed that authorities wouldn't harm or shoot students during basic quota protests, revealing the government's fascist and dictatorial tendencies, which persist due to the lack of proper voting mechanism. On July 21st, the Bangladeshi Supreme Court mandated an overhaul of the quota reservation system. It reduced the number of positions reserved for relatives of veterans of the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War to 5% and increased merit-based appointments in the civil service to 93%. Despite this decision, student demonstrators vowed to continue protesting for other demands, including the resignation of those responsible for the violence and the release of detainees. Many countries expressed concerns for Bangladesh, warning the ruling government against moving towards a one-party system. The issue is significant, as many have lost their lives trying to change the system for a better future where they have the opportunity to secure good jobs. The rally is still ongoing, and it remains to be seen what the verdict will be for the current demands. The Bangladesh anti-quota protest continues with growing concerns for the well-being of the protesters. Violence in any form against protesters, especially students, is a grave human rights violation. The right to peaceful protest is fundamental in any democratic society, and the suppression of this right through brutal force is both alarming and unacceptable. The recent events in Bangladesh have shocked the conscience of the international community. Students who represent the future of the nation have been met with deadly violence while exercising their right to protest. The use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and live ammunition against these young protesters is a blatant violation of their human rights. The images of blood-stained streets and university campuses stand as a grim testament to the lengths to which the authorities have gone to silence dissent. This violent crackdown is not just an attack on the students, it is an attack on the principles of justice and equality. So instead of using violence, the government should come up with better laws that ensure job opportunities for all deserving candidates. For now, we can only pray and support those risking their lives to fight for their rights. May those who died rest in peace, and may there be safety for those still protesting. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.